Alright, so this video is devoted to day 6 of the NZ classes, and this pertains to the schedule over here. This is going to be guided drill set 3, which is day 6 of the day 10 classes. Now, presumably, prior to this session, there were some tests, some mock tests the day prior. And the way that this day is designed is that it will cover again all the 4 components. So as you can see, in the first 1 hour there will be an activity for both listening and reading, and then some input on essay writing in another hour or so, and then the last part will be devoted to just speaking. Now, as regards the listening component, there will be only 2 items that will be covered. Specifically, these are sections 2 and 3 only of the listening test, and this pertains to this section over here of the book. That would be page 67. Sorry, page 67 and page 68 of the book. Now, the guide or the lesson plan for this has been given already. Just please refer to the document that looks something like this. And this particular lesson plan actually covers all the 4 sections of the listening drill, but since we only cover 2 of these sections, just refer to the corresponding parts over here. Okay, so that's how it's going to be for the listening part. Now, since there will be only 2 sections to be covered, this should last for about 15-20 minutes tops, and that is because the other 20 or 25 minutes should be devoted to the reading component, which is going to be pages 70 to 72 of the book. So here is how it's going to look like. And basically, our role here in reading is to guide them again as regards how to answer the questions here. So always, when you start with the reading activity, we ask students the different kinds of methods that they have to use when looking for the answers. Now, you might write on the board the 3 methods. Of course, prior to that, you can always ask them just for them to refresh their memory. But if in case they have forgotten, they have to mention that there are 3, and these are scanning, skimming, and reading in verbatim. So these 3 key phrases should be written on the board. However, before you proceed, you might also want to ask them how exactly do they decide whether to scan, to skim, or to do the verbatim approach. So for them to be able to answer that, they should be able to first read the questions ahead of time, because it is from the questions that they will know what method they have to use. So to illustrate this point, direct them to page 70, which is of course the coverage of their drill. So let them read the question over here. This one is clearly a completion question, which means that they have to skim. Now, what they do when they have to skim, the basic steps are to look for keywords from the question itself, and from the question, they will look for the same keyword from the text itself over here. Now, presumably also in the case of skimming, we expect that the answers to these 8 items over here, or for any item that requires skimming, the answers to be arranged in a sequential manner, which means number 1 should be found somewhere at the beginning, and number 8 should be found somewhere at the end of the text. So to start this activity, you guide them again. So for example, number 1 says, bee eaters' prey are bees and other blank. So prey could be a keyword here, and if you take a look at the top of the text over here, it says here, true to their name, bee eaters eat. So eat is a keyword equivalent to prey, because what bee eaters eat is, of course, their prey. So you let them read this line over here, and almost automatically the students would be unanimous in saying that the answer is flying insect. All right, so that's number one. Now you might want to do this in the first three items, or first two items only if you wish. But for the rest of the items, they work independently. Now, you need to be able to do this warming up activity so that they know what to do. Again, this is a guided reading activity, so your job is to guide them. So, number two, bee eaters need to remove the blank from bees before eating them. So, the keyword here is remove. What do they remove? So, since this is sequentially arranged, the answer's meaning, then we have to just read down. So it says here, when the bird catches a bee, it returns to its tree to get rid of. To get rid of is the same as to remove. So what do they get rid of? They get rid of the bee's poison, which it does very effectively. So the bees is here. So therefore, what they remove from the bees is the poison. So that's number two. Now, you basically guide them all throughout here, and you give them 8 minutes, no, you give them about 7 minutes to answer the remaining items, all right? You might also want to guide them for keywords only. For example, in number three, the keywords will be agricultural land. And since the word "and" is here, so what's the other area in which food is plentiful for bee eaters besides the agricultural land? Okay. Number four, bee eaters migrate to spend the winter in different parts of. In this case, could be a place. The keyword is winter. And if you direct them to the text, they'll find the word winter somewhere here in this paragraph. It's here at the beginning of the paragraph. So you can let them take a look at that part for number four. Number five, because of blank, almost 1/3 of bee eaters do not survive migration. Now, they were taught, or supposedly they should have been taught, that keywords can be in the form of names or numbers. Names could be, of course, names of people, places, events, even common nouns like earlier, poison, prey, agricultural land, winter. But for number five, we clearly have here a number, 1/3. You might want to guide them as regards how else 1/3 can be written, because it's a fraction. So if this were a percentage, you can ask them what would be the equivalent percentage. The answer is 30%. So if you guide them, they'll find 30% somewhere over here. Okay, so that's the clue. So basically you do that. Maybe you can work up until number five, so they can work more independently. You leave 6 to 8 to them, and then afterwards you answer, you justify the answers, and then you move on to the next part. So in this section over here, this, by the way, the slide. So what you can do is just study these slides and see the matching answers. I'll supply the answer key in the information that accompanies this video itself. All right, so just check it out there. Now, next section would be this. This is a multiple choice questionnaire. This is found on page 71. Now, page 71 is going to be a class activity because it's a warm-up activity. Now, emphasize to them the method in which or which they follow to get the answers for any multiple choice item. And the technique is this. Number one, let them know that when they have multiple choice items, we don't want them to read the choices, because sometimes the choices could have long sentences besides just words or phrases like the ones over here. Now, we don't want them to read that because we don't want them to be overwhelmed by the amount of information they have to take note of for each item. Instead, what they should be doing is just read the question first, get the keywords again, because for multiple choice items, the key method is to skim. And once they find the basis, they get the answer, and then compare that answer against the choices provided. Because sometimes not all keywords can be found in the text. They almost always just serve as a distraction or a way to trick the examinee. So, like in this case, which of these animals spends most but not all of its life alone? So the keyword here is most, not all of its life alone. So since this is number one, you direct them to paragraph one, you read the paragraph, and they'll find out that it cannot be the palalo because the palalo uh, never have contact with the other members of the same species over here. But in the case of the spider, it says here that they are normally solitary over here and that they only meet to mate. So therefore, the answer is the spider. The herring gull isn't mentioned here, so therefore letter B is basically a distraction. Now you go to number two. You do the same thing. The clue for the robins and the herring gulls are over here. So check this out. Now for this particular item, I'd like you to emphasize a key technique in multiple choice questions, and that is the elimination technique. What it basically means is that you let them go through the choices one after another and eliminate the unlikely or the incorrect answer. So, for instance, in this particular paragraph, there's a there's a mention of the robins and the herring gulls, but it cannot be letter A because in this paragraph, the chicks are raised in pairs, both by robins and herring gulls. So as regards how many birds, they're just the same. They're not different, so it cannot be letter A. Letter B is a possible answer, but there's also a C choice, so you also have to confirm this. C asks for how long they spend together. This cannot be an answer because this paragraph does not say for how long the robins or the herring gulls raise their chicks. There's only a reference to how they are raised. So the answer therefore for this text is letter B. So you always do that. You do the same thing for 3, 4, and 5 for them to have an idea as regards the method to use here. And so once you're done with 3, 4, and 5 all together as a class, you now direct them to page number 72. That's this part over here. And you let them know or refresh them about the key methods, and that is first to just get the keywords from the question, find the answer in the text, and compare the answer against the choices. And when they want to choose from among the choices, they can use the elimination method. So that's very important. Now, for this particular set, you give them 10 minutes to look for the answers. Again, the answers for this will be provided in the video preview or whatever it's called, together with the other bits of information in the video itself. Just look down in the information and you get the answer key there. And again, the slides pertaining to this have been laid down for you for your convenience. So this is from items 1 up until 8. Okay, so I hope this is clear. That's your reading part. But here is if they still have time, if you are still within the 50-minute allotment. Initially, what we have in the guide is just pages 70 to 72. But if you still have time, I encourage you to also cover the scanning activity, which is done in pages 73 and 74 over here. However, take note that this particular drill has been answered already, supposedly on day 1. So basically, what we do here is just go straight to page 74 and hold on over here, and the method here is scanning. Principally what that means is they have to first look for the names of sports listed over here, and since this is a matching activity, they only scan. The only other occasion where scanning is used is when the question requires them to classify, which is the case of the drill on page 73. Now, basically, in scanning, what they do is they look first for the names of or the keywords, and then once they find those names, they put them in boxes, like this one over here on the left. And once they have found those keywords, they just read around those keywords to be able to find a match for numbers 1 to 7 over here. All right? Now, the first part of this activity is to again to guide them as regards where the answers could be found. So you let them first search for the keywords, give them like around a minute or two, and then once they're done, you just basically flash this slide so that they will be able to see if their answers match or their highlighted words match with the key answers over here. Now, once you're through with that, you give them an additional 7 minutes again to get the answers from 1 to 7, and then when you're done, you ask them one by one to answer numbers 1 to 7. All right, so the next slide shows us the key answers. They're arranged according to the numbers here. And after the answers have been given, emphasize that unlike in the skimming method, in questions requiring answers to be scanned, the answers are always randomly arranged. So here is an illustration to emphasize the point. Okay?